So I'm not an expert. But by not being an expert, I think, yeah, as I said already, it gives me a freedom to just try some things. I'm not necessarily aware of a tradition. I'm not hugely aware of an academic tradition or an ideological tradition. I had a lot of problems towards the latter half of my acting career with being an actor and not really knowing what an actor is. That's a good cue for another photograph. Whoops. So this is an actor we all know. It's Patrick Stewart. Oh, sorry. Is that all right, Dan? Here's Patrick Stewart. He's doing some rather fantastic acting. And the situation that Patrick Stewart has been given in this scenario is this. You are a middle-aged tax accountant told by a beautiful young colleague that you're incredibly sexy. I'll have one more Patrick Stewart. It's taken a long time to find this, I think. Howard has given him a lot of time. It's a very moving scenario. Patrick Stewart here is acting. You are a CEO who knows that the compensation committee is going to okay your massive raise. Move on. So then I've made some work in the last 7 years. And I have to thank Ireland a little bit in the genesis of that work. I have to thank a woman called Aideen Howard, who's not here but is coming this evening, who, when I opened my first show called My Arm at the Traveller's Theatre, she put a little note in the dressing room saying, would I like to bring this piece of work to Bray, to the Mermaid Theatre in Bray. It was the first of my first international engagements. Ever, actually. I had never been to Ireland before. So I feel indebted to Aideen to a degree, and I feel indebted greatly to this country, and I am very much taken by this country. I'm partly taken by this country because, partly made up by the makeup of you here today, there is an incredible diversity in, I think, the audience here. There seems to be a freer acceptance of all the different forms of theatre that exist. I know actors here who've worked on a restoration comedy at the Abbey, at the new Enda Walsh, with a small company. Who did I meet just outside having a cigarette? Eleanor. Was it Eleanor? Yeah, you said you were going to work with a new company and felt like you were the grandmother of that company. Not, you know. That's quite unusual, can I just say, that's quite a special thing that you have here, because in the UK there is an absolutely hard and fast division between the different movements in theatre. I got working last year with a very successful traditional actress in Britain called Selina Cadell. Selina Cadell is part of an acting sort of family. Her brother Simon Cadell was a very successful actor who died very young. She has been in maybe 30 productions at the National Theatre in London. At the time that I was working with her, a company called Forced Entertainment had made a piece of work to celebrate their 20th anniversary. It was a show called Bloody Mess. Forced Entertainment is an extraordinary company. They've been going for nearly 25 years now. They are at the forefront of moving new forms, exploring new things. And I took my children to see Bloody Mess the night before I was working with Selina Cadell. Selina Cadell, in her mid-50s, has worked everywhere, has taught at RADA, has taught at Central, knows everything there is to know about theatre, I thought, in Britain. And when I told Selina Cadell the night before I'd been to see Forced Entertainment's Bloody Mess, she'd never heard of them. And I find that kind of telling for where we are in the UK, and I haven't really encountered that here. I get a sense here that the theatre scene is much more all-embracing, of people trying stuff, new work, radical things, brave thoughts. And actors, I think, are happier to slip in and out of different forms and different styles of work. So I would just identify that as a really strong aspect of the Irish theatre scene that I don't think we have in Britain. We have this schism in Britain between sort of the ego and the brain. And I think it's a schism that I have inhabited at times, the notion of wanting to get the right spotlight photograph versus trying to think intelligently about what the hell we're doing with this art form. And I think sometimes, as Mr. Schatz demonstrates, there is a danger that the ego carries away with itself, it gets carried away. And somehow the brain is not allowed in. So what I try to do in the work that I've been doing in the last 7 years is to prioritise thinking in the theatre. And I think sometimes that's held very suspiciously by audiences and by theatre makers. That if we ask the audience to think, they're not going to come and see the work. And I want us to question that, and I want us to think about that, and how important for me ideas are, and how exciting ideas are, and how theatrical ideas are. And ultimately, I hope, and it's a conviction that I hold very strongly, I hope if we are strong and hold our nerve with ideas in theatre, that actually we can move out of the ego-driven stuff and get to somewhere quite interesting. So we don't have Patrick Stewart going into a photographic studio and doing his acting. Let's have another one. This is another Patrick Stewart. Here we go. It's a very sad one, everyone. So this is Patrick Stewart, and the scenario that he is acting here is you are a man listening to your wife and daughter scream at each other at Thanksgiving dinner. It's very moving. I would like you to spend a little while imagining how that must have been for Patrick Stewart in that recording, in that photographic studio, what he needed to get himself into that other reality. One more Patrick Stewart, which is this one. He's an incredibly varied performer. This is Patrick Stewart acting. You are a struggling restaurant owner confronting two protection racket collectors. And the line that Patrick Stewart has been given for this piece of acting is, "That's it, you blood-sucking bastards, not one more penny." This is a book called In Character, Actors Acting. Just in case there's any doubt, what you're witnessing now is acting. And this is the theatre forum, and theatre is where acting happens. This is it, people. Look, that's what it is. So, I've made some work, and I suppose I can't label myself in terms of my background, my traditions. I think I've been quite lucky in a way that I have come from such a varied tradition, but the word that gets labelled on me by other people is the word experimental. I did a half-hour interview to a newspaper in London, half an hour in a lunch break, and we talked about masses of things. The piece that appeared in the newspaper was this big, and it said, "Experimental theatre bod, Tim Crouch, who likes to mess with his audiences." And then it said a quote from me that I talked about the shows at the Whitechapel Gallery in East London, and the quote that they used for me was, "The Whitechapel is a great place to have a curry and come and see a show."